聞こえてますか? Hello. Okay. We will start the session shortly, so please wait with your seats. Yeah, you have to. Please wear your headset. I think you can hear me now. Okay, good. So please wait for a little bit more time and we will start shortly. Microphone? Oh, headset. Ah, okay.
I don't know if anyone is here in person from Sapporo City.
No, they'll be online.
Okay, they were just in California for Greenville, so I wasn't sure if anyone was going to be here. So
I see.
I work with the city of Sapporo, so
Oh,
I saw
really?
them on your agenda.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, are they here too?
No,
I just saw
no,
them in
no.
San Francisco last week. Yeah, yeah.
That's
I
great.
run Lead for Cities. It's a lead for buildings, and then Lead for Cities is a sustainability certification scale.
That's why Sapporo, yeah, because
Yeah.
they're the only one. I mean, they're the first.あ、そうですね。前の方に来ていただいて。はい。
スライド出して。
ですね。後で喋るときはここに出てください。私は指示するので、そこの前で。はい。で、指示して、次のスライドって言っていただければ。
そういうことです。
next っていうのはい。I think we could begin the session. Yeah? Are you ready? So I'll pass the mic to you, Wolfgang, please.
Good afternoon, everybody, and warm welcome from my side to the audience here in the Lgma pavilion, and also to the audience that is hopefully watching online. This session is addressing the potential to also, improve the multi-level governance agenda on the example of the Urban 7 process. To recall this, the Urban 7 process goes back to 2016, when the Japanese government, and particularly the Ministry of Environment, was for the first time calling for a mayors and ministers meeting. In 2021, the UK core cities was taking it up and was basically forming an Urban 7 group that also addressed the UK government. Under the German presidency in 2022, I mean, we could particularly, scale up and enhance the process with the support, particularly of the Ministry for Housing and Urban Development and the Ministry for Development Cooperation. So this immediately brings me to my first speaker, which is Professor Oliver Weigel. He's the head of International and European Urban Development Policy Division, and he's also the German G7 Senior Urban Development Official. So he's quite instrumental, I would say, for the process, because under the German presidency, we had for the first time an urban development ministers meeting. So I see him. Welcome, Professor Weigel, and I would like to particularly have you reflect on the outcomes of the German G7 presidency and the significance of local government in the global sustainability agenda. So the word is yours. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Wolfgang. Can you understand me well? I hope so. I can't see anything now as long as I don't hear any protest. I
Understand.
suppose so. Okay, dear Vice Minister Ono, dear Mayor County, dear mayors from Japan and Germany, especially Peter Kurz and Markus Lewe, but I think they are not yet online. Dear Wolfgang, dear colleagues and partners. First of all, I have to say that I'm a bit jealous because we have a typical gray Berlin November day, and I'd rather prefer to be with you physically, but as we are working at the moment, working very hard on our international urban development policy and the problems in Ukraine, I had to stay here. So, but I thank you for inviting me to and with me, the German G7 presidency, to this event, especially as, and Wolfgang, you already mentioned it, 2022 has been, again, after 2020, a very important year for international urban development policy. And you already mentioned that we, for the first time ever, the group of 7 decided to hold a meeting of the ministers in charge of urban development. And already in our policy priorities in early January, we stated and we underlined the importance of cities, and we committed ourselves to making a stronger approach to a sustainable, strategic and integrated urban development. The policy program, for those who are used to working with G7 or G20 processes, was the opener for us. And it was basically the foundation on which we built our ministers' meeting and the document on which we worked. But of course, it was a major and a big step when we managed to bring, I think, a significant and important commitment of the G7 leaders, of the heads of government and states, to make cities strong players in dealing with the problems of the future and the potentials of the future in our societies and states. And of course, it was important for us because we also want to not only arrange and work on issues concerning the G7 and cities inside the circle of the G7, but also we try to create some outreach. We try to be a partner for countries and cities around the world. My minister was very decisive and very decided when it came to creating this urban development track. It was for us a challenge and a very rewarding task. And I think the signal that we invite, or my minister invited, not only our outreach partners, but also Mayor Peter Kurz from Mannheim as the speaker for the Urban 7 to the ministers' meeting in Potsdam, that was a strong sign. I think the way in which we've been working on drafting the document, on integrating the views of our partners and many stakeholders working in urban development, both nationally and internationally, was also a signal. We want to make urban development not an issue of governments, national governments, but we want to make it an issue of all levels of government, and we want to integrate stakeholders that shape our daily life, the daily life in our cities, together with us. We want to integrate them and make them the core and the center of urban development in the G7 framework and beyond. I think what we achieved with the G7 ministers' communique is interesting, maybe remarkable, because of course, inside the G7, we have very different urban systems, we have very different political systems and different policies, but nevertheless, as democratic countries, we came to the conclusion that strengthening cities, strengthening urban development, strengthening approaches in neighborhoods, on the neighborhood level, and together with the people living in the cities, is also strengthening democracy, and not only, but especially since the Russian war against Ukraine, I think it's clear that democracy as such is under threat, inside and outside our countries. I'd like to conclude by first inviting you to have a closer look on what we, the stakeholders of urban development, the governments of the G7 countries, tried to underline, tried to emphasize in the G7 document, in our communique. And I'd like to ask you to hold us accountable for what we do. I'd like you to push us to the point where we declare that we want to be. Sounds a bit strange, but that is, we need pressure, we need support and pressure from the outside world, because inside governments, all of you working inside government know this logic. Sometimes complicated and complex issues don't find enough support. And thirdly, and that is most important, I'd like to thank the government of Japan. Japan has already announced on our G7 Ministers Summit that Japan will continue with the urban development track. Japan will support all G7 countries, and I'm convinced Japan will also support the cities. And I'm really looking forward to continue to work on this track together with you all in Sharm el-Sheikh and on the screens, and especially with the government of Japan. So thank you, and I'm looking forward for the next 10 minutes to join you afterwards. I'm sorry, I have to leave for the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Weigel, dear Oliver. I think you showed us that you're not only missing the sun here, but we also miss you here and your contributions. Thank you. So this brings me immediately to my next speaker, because I mean the Japanese presidency is already basically starting, more or less. And I'm happy to welcome Mr. Yoshihiro Mitsutani. He's the Director for International Cooperation for Transition to Decarbonization and Sustainable Infrastructure. So I would be interested to hear how Japan is collaborating with local governments, the Japanese government, in achieving sustainability, and what are the prospects for the G7 Climate and Energy Ministerial Meeting in 2023, also, of course, relating to local government. The word is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Okay. So, first of all, I would like to express apology for the absence of Ono Hiroshi, Vice Minister for Global Environment Affairs, due to his busy schedule. And I would like to say a few introductory words on behalf of Vice Minister and our ministry. So it is a great honor to be invited to this important event. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to ICRE for organizing this seminar to strengthen G7 U7 partnership to promote city climate actions. The latest IPCC report released this April has highlighted cities account for approximately 70% of global GHG emissions, which are urgently addressed for a transition to decarbonization and for keeping 1.5 degrees within reach. The role of cities in driving climate actions is recognized in the communique of the G7 Climate, Energy and Environment Ministerial Meeting under German presidency this year. The communique also highlights the importance of international city-to-city collaboration, which Ministry of the Environment Japan has promoted for the last 10 years in partnership with local governments and private technology providers. We appreciate Germany's effort in this regard, and Japan, as the next G7 presidency, will keep and boost this momentum. The next G7 ministerial meeting on climate, energy, and environment will be held in Sapporo City in April 2023. As you may know, Sapporo City is taking the lead in establishing a zero-carbon city model in snowy, cold climates in partnership with private sectors and academia. And the Yokohama City and Kobe City, whose representatives are joining today, are also front runners of subnational zero carbon commitments and actions in Japan. On top of local initiatives, I would like to emphasize the critical roles of national governments that should play in supporting and catalyzing efforts of local governments by creating an enabling environment. This is in line with the U7 joint statement this year that requested G7 countries' leadership in multi-level or multi-layer cooperation for effective engagement of local governments. And as he said, Japan's presidency also keep the urban development track, and climate and environment track also working together with the urban development track. The government of Japan provides comprehensive support to local governments, including both urban and rural areas, in terms of technical or financial and human resources. And in the international context, Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA, launched a Clean City Initiative this year, which supports tailored solutions for the realization of clean cities in developing countries. I understand that similar efforts are made by Germany and other EU countries, and I hope to expand such multi-level cooperation across the world with enhanced collaboration with U7 members. Before concluding my remarks, I would like to inform you that the Ministry of the Environment will also organize 2 side events tomorrow, focusing on subnational climate actions. From 1 p.m., Quad workshop, Quad means Japan, US, Australia, and India. We will organize a Quad workshop on subnational climate action, which aim to encourage information sharing, mutual learning on subnational climate actions, as well as to facilitate city-to-city collaboration. The other side event, leading actions towards zero carbon cities, co-organized by Ministry of the Environment and OECD, at 250 will show you the initiative taken by Japan and EU to create and identify leading regions for decarbonization. Japanese pavilion is not so far from this pavilion. So please, we are waiting for your participation as well. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. So as was mentioned, I think both by the Japanese ministry as well as the German contribution. I mean, we're not talking only about cities that are doing things on their own or urban governments, but we're also talking about other stakeholders that we need. And one of those is is also engaged in the G7 process under the Think 7 engagement group. So, and we have the pleasure to have Mr. Tetsubi Sonobe. He's the Dean of the Asian Development Bank Institute and leading the Think 7 process, under the Japanese presidency. So may I invite you to just give us a bit of insight. What is Think 7 and what are the expected goals for Think 7 in 2023? And also, of course, where do you see the added value and in a cooperation maybe between Think 7 and Urban 7 in next year?
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. And thank you very much, organizers, for giving me this opportunity to talk about the Think 7. So Think 7 is engagement group of the think tanks in the world, not only the G7 member country think tanks, but it's open to all the think tanks and also researchers in universities and other academic organizations. Think 7 is new. So the similar one is called Think 20 or T20, which has already 10 years history, but Think 7 is very new, which started or which became one of the official engagement group of under G7 just 1 year ago at the beginning of the G7 Germany. And I'm going to be the lead chair of Think 7 Japan as part of Japan's G7 presidency next year. T7 2020, Japan 2023 is going to discuss lots of issues, lots of policy challenge and other issues. But overarching theme is to address the crisis and reignite sustainable development. So crisis means not only health crisis, but food crisis, energy crisis, of course, climate crisis, and these days, debt crisis of developing countries. And then for the last 3 years, the world, slowed down the effort toward achieving the sustainable development goals. But we have to, start or reignite the sustainable development. So those things will be discussed, and then our goal is to make sound policy proposals and then hand over our proposals to the G7 leaders, who will meet in Hiroshima next year, May, at the G7 summit. And then we are working, because we are working on climate sustainability and urban development, and also eradication of the remaining poverty in the cities and the rural areas in the developing countries. So the T7 and the Urban 7 are very well aligned with each other. And we also believe the Urban 7's multi-level government collaboration, cooperation approach is very useful, effective approach. So it's a very good idea to work together to at least boost the awareness about engagement group, and also work together to make both T7 and Urban 7's, the proposals and arguments are more effective and more impactful. And also, I forgot to mention another roles expected for T7 to play next year is to bridge the G7 and the G20. So as you know, the G7 and the non-G7 G20 members need to work together more closely. How to bridge the two? So I think, and many other people think that it's a good idea to have a collaboration between T7 Japan and the T20 India and the G20 India presidency, work together closely. So that's another important role. So these things are expected. And then I look forward to have a great cooperation and collaboration with Urban 7. Thank you very much. I'll stop here.
Contribution. Warmly welcomed your offer, and we'll certainly take it up. So before I hand over to my colleague Togo Uchida from the ICLEI Japan Secretariat, just another big thank you to Mr. Mitsutani from the Japanese Environment Ministry, as well as, of course, Professor Weigel from the German Ministry for Housing and Urban Development for their very, very warmly welcomed and valuable contribution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wolfgang, and hello, everyone. My name is Togo, and I'm the Executive Director for ICLEI Japan office. And I'll be taking the moderator role from my wonderful colleague, Wolfgang, here onwards. From the opening session, we have heard how Urban 7 as an engagement group have managed to consolidate G7 local government voices in a form of mayor's declaration, and how these messages were delivered and was taken up in a number of communiques of G7 German presidencies. And as G7 presidency will be handed over to Japan next year, our mind is now focusing on how we could transfer this success and even go further in deepening our engagement with G7 governments and strengthening multi-level collaboration to achieve sustainable world. So as ICLEI Japan, together with Japan Designated City Mayors Association, JDCMA, we have started to discuss with relevant stakeholders, preparing ourselves for next year's G7 agenda. And this means from now on, we will be listening, talking, and discussing with our Urban 7 colleagues and consolidate our message, communicate with our government so that our G7 countries can lead the world with concrete multi-level policies and actions. So today, I'm extremely happy that we have a great lineup of speakers representing local governments. And to begin with, I would like to start by giving the audience a glimpse of what the local governments in Japan are doing, followed by examples from other parts of the world and a discussion session. So let us begin first by a mayor from所City. So Mayor, please, can you come over here to give a presentation before us? Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Masato Fujimoto, Mayor of所City, Japan. It is an honor to be here. Let me start with the introduction of所City. It only takes 30 minutes from Tokyo to get to Tokorozawa by train, with a population of 340,000. While Tokorozawa City is very accessible from Tokyo, there is still nature left, such as crop fields and Satoyama in Japanese. You may remember gigantic earthquake in eastern Japan in 2011. Humans are just part of nature. It became my core belief since then. Humans should respect all life around us, not to exploit nor destroy them. Do you know Japanese animation, My Neighbor Totoro? The theme of the animation is living in harmony with nature, and it is inspired by the rich greenery in Tokorozawa. We should preserve and inherit this beautiful city to our children. In this regard, I place the highest importance on reconnecting human and nature. That leads to my main policy frameworks: achieving decarbonized society and creating people-centered town. I'd I'd like to introduce some example from now. The first topic is the introduction of renewable energy. We put large-scale solar generation facilities on waste landfill and on a retention basin. In normal times, the generated power is used at public facilities. And in times of emergency, local community can use portable rechargeable batteries. Tokorozawa City has also invested to establish the electricity retailer company called Tokorozawa Future Energy Power with other private companies in 2018. The company is now promoting the installation of solar power facilities without initial cost using power purchase agreement. The next topic is greenery. Greenery have several positive impacts, such as mitigating heat island effect and absorbing CO2. Especially, I want our children to enjoy nature, such as by fishing and bug catching like we used to do in our childhood. However, green areas have been lost due to the city development. We are trying to increase greenery by introducing tax benefit and working with local organizations. Lastly, Tokorozawa City is now revising climate action plan to achieve zero carbon society by 2050. In addition, we are now holding climate assembly on climate change by inviting citizens who are chosen at random. We are expecting participants to develop ideas to make social change. I have introduced some of our ongoing efforts in Tokorozawa. Time is running out. As mayor of Tokorozawa, I am leading actions for all the children. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Fujimoto. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Kazuaki Takahashi, Executive Director for Planning and Coordination Department of City of Yokohama. So please.
Thank you very much. And I'm very pleased to be here and thank ICREI for organizing this wonderful event. We are now trying to become net carbon neutral city. And last year, our mayor announced the target of 50% reduction by 2030 compared to 2013, followed by the target. The revision of Yokohama City Action Plan is now almost at the last corner, and we will revise soon, hopefully. For achieving, before, last slide, please. Thank you. For achieving carbon neutral society, Ministry of the Environment Japan aims to designate decarbonization leading areas. Decarbonization leading areas aim to achieve carbon neutral from electricity consumption in households and business sectors by 2030. In addition, make efforts to achieve reductions in other greenhouse gas emissions, such as from transportation and heat use by utilizing local characteristics, which is consistent with Japan 2030 target. In Yokohama, Minamirai area, located close to City Hall, was selected as one of the leading decarbonized leading areas. There, we aim to build a model of decarbonization in urban area with public-private partnership. Next, please. Here shows another example of our action, which is about the inter-regional cooperation efforts. since Yokohama has huge population, about 3.7 million people, and does not have that much open space, it is difficult to generate a large amount of renewable energy. We estimate it is possible to generate only 10% of our consumption in Yokohama. That's why we signed agreements with 15 municipalities in Tohoku and Kanto region, northeast of Japan, that have a high potential of renewable energy. Under the agreements, we would like to cooperate together with the application of circulating and ecological sphere concept. Next slide, please. This year, we have started a new program to innovate and spread attractive lifestyle and a carbon neutral society. To reduce life cycle greenhouse gas emission, new lifestyle is necessary for various areas such as fashion, food, house, movement, consumer goods, leisure, and energy. And spread new lifestyle. We believe that it should deliver not only carbon neutral, but attractive future. Under these views, Yokohama is trying to innovate business or local model related to sustainable and pioneer lifestyle. For this innovation, we will utilize digital technology which can share various goods and assist our activity, and local communities, which has been the basis of Japanese society for a long time. This program, we like to integrate carbon neutral society, sound material cycle society, society in harmony with nature, and sustainable development. Next, please. To summarize, Yokohama has focused on decarbonization and will accelerate it and continue to collaborate with other stakeholders internationally and domestically. We hope to work together to make carbon neutrality through with synergies between Paris Agreement and 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Thank you for your attention.
Takashi-san, thank you so much. Now, we have a video message from Mayor of Sapporo City. Sapporo City will be hosting the G7 Climate and Energy Ministerial meeting tomorrow, next year, sorry. Mayor kindly sent us the video for this particular session. So can you please run the video, please? Thank you.
皆さんこんにちは。札幌市長の秋元克弘です。この度は Lgma パビリオンのシティセッションにメッセージを発信させていただく機会を頂戴し、誠にありがとうございます。来年4月の G7 気候エネルギー環境大臣会合の開催都市となるここ北海道札幌は197万の人口を擁する大都市でありながら、豊かな自然に恵まれており、四季の移ろいがはっきりしていることから、季節ごとの美しい風景やイベントを楽しむことができる街です。特に日本はこれから冬を迎えますが、札幌のような人口規模にありながら、年間5メートルもの雪が積もる都市は世界にも例がなく、札幌雪まつりをはじめとするイベントやウィンタースポーツなど、雪は北海道札幌の経済や文化を支える重要な資源であり、大きな財産となっています。しかし、地球温暖化に伴う気候変動の影響により、北海道札幌の気温上昇は世界や国内の他の地域よりも速いペースで進んでおり、地球温暖化がさらに進んでしまうと、札幌の雪を将来世代に残すことができなくなってしまう可能性があります。このため札幌市では、市内から排出される温室効果ガスを2050年には実質ゼロにするゼロカーボンシティを目指し、2030年には2013年比で温室効果ガス排出量を 59% 削減するという非常に高い目標を設定しています。具体的な取り組みとしては、北国の住宅に広く普及している灯油式暖房のエネルギー転換による CO2 排出量の削減といった積雪寒冷地の課題を踏まえた取り組みや、 市民一人一人の行動変容を促す仕掛け作りなど、積雪寒冷地のモデルとなるような対策を市民や事業者の皆様と一丸となって進めているところです。現在開催されている COP27 では、産業革命前からの世界の平均気温の上昇を 1.5 度までに抑えるため、各国における議論が行われておりますが、本セッションのテーマの通り、1.5 度目標に向けて都市が果たす役割は大変重要であると考えております。来年開催される G7 気候エネルギー環境大臣会合では、気候変動対策は最重要課題の一つとして議論されるかと思いますが、開催地であるこの北海道は日本の中でも再生可能エネルギーのポテンシャルが最も高いエリアであり、その中心都市である札幌市といたしましても、都市における再生可能エネルギーの活用や気候変動対策の重要性について発信してまいりたいと考えております。本日のセッションを通じ、脱炭素社会の実現に向けた都市間ネットワークがさらに広がり、目標の達成につながることを期待して、私からの挨拶とさせていただきます。
Yes, thank you very much for that very powerful message from Mayor of Sapporo. So now we would like to move on to the next session, and I would like to ask our speakers to be coming on stage. So Mayor County, can you please come onto the stage? ですね、藤本市長も前に座っていただけますでしょうか。高橋さんも、はい、お願いします。Mayor Lgma. So we have heard from some of the examples of Japanese cities and their efforts to sustainability. And now I would like to ask the panelists, the speakers here, of their activities, and then perhaps get an engagement on discussion on going deeper about the multi-level collaboration. But Mayor Lgma, I believe that you have an other session that you have to participate. So let us first ask Mayor Lgma to share us what you have been doing, and then your experience about multi-level collaboration. And as the Lgma Special Envoy for COP27, I would like you to share with the audience about your experience of your communication with the high-level officials here in COP27, and what is the feedback that you're getting in terms of multi-level collaboration. So that's a lot of questions, sorry, but I hope you could answer. So Mayor Lgma, please.
No, I have to push it. Work now? Better. Okay, I take this one. Yeah, this works. Well, there are a lot of questions, absolutely. Maybe something about my background. I have been previously member of the Dutch government and Minister for the Environment, and in that position was one of the European negotiators on the Paris Agreement. And as a mayor, actually, I have seen how important implementation of that agreement is, and that you cannot do this without the cities. And I am a mayor of a city in the heart of the Netherlands, a logistical hub, so to say. We have the biggest railway station in the Netherlands. Many people travel through Utrecht daily. And at the same time, we try to be a very modern, maybe even futuristic city when it comes to sustainability, and especially within issues like mobility or the energy transition. As a special envoy for ICLEI Lgma, I was asked to put the importance of the role of cities on the agenda of the UN and of the national delegations. And I have been working a lot on this. with having bilaterals with, for instance, the Egyptian presidency, speaking at preparation meetings towards the COP. I was recently in Buenos Aires at C40 to get a lot of support from colleague mayors worldwide for a call to action in which we asked actually for a few things: recognition for the cities, access to finance and expertise, a formal role within the NDC. So please, governments, let us be part of your national determined contributions so that the world can see what our contribution is. And we also have to acknowledge the fact that we need to bring a contribution. And there is also this so-called search initiative, sustainable urban resilience for the next generations. It's a kind of agenda in which we want to work as cities worldwide to really deliver, actually. And now the reactions are, I have to say, we're working with diplomats, right? So diplomats not always show what they have in their sleeves. So yes, there is recognition for the cities. I think that there is not one person here at the pavilions and all these buildings who is in denial on the role of cities. But at the same time, we're not there yet, because what we also see is that this is a COP of the parties, so to say, and the parties are national governments. And national governments actually need to share a little bit of their power with us. And it is not so easy to do this voluntarily. So we need to find a sound way in which we are recognized, in which we really can discuss also with national governments and the UN infrastructure on how to get a real implementation agenda. And I hope that it will be possible to have some of this in the conclusions of the COP presidency. But now we're working on this a lot behind the scenes, so to say, and we have to see in the weekend probably, because it won't be Friday, I suppose, how we'll end up. I'm not giving you any guarantees, only my utmost best.
Thank you very much. We understand that the draft text is now out, and now I think my colleagues and everyone, including you, are working hard to make sure that the multi-level collaboration is mentioned in the document, and I think we should all work together.
That is what we're working on, and recognition for multi-level cooperation and the role of cities as drivers for change and for innovation, because I think that you see on the ground that we are the ones who really pick up the gloves and work.
Fantastic. And today's theme is also include the G7 agenda, and it might be useful for you to also use the G7 as the G7 countries recognizing in their communique about the roles of local governments. So maybe that could be also a push on the discussion.
Yeah, it would be great.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mayor Lgma. Thank you very much. So you have an appointment, so maybe you could
then if I'm dismissed, then I will go.
Yes, you are dismissed, and you have a lot of work to do, so thank you so much.
We have some bilaterals still. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mayor Lgma. Yes, so a lot of work to do, and she's working around in the pavilion as well as in the negotiation stage. So I think, yeah, we should put a lot of support behind her so that the mission is accomplished. So I would like to now move on to Mayor County. Thank you for coming on stage. So as everyone knows, Mayor County, he's also the president of the ICLEI. And you have experienced a lot of COP discussions of this multi-level collaboration. But please share us about your city, Des Moines, what you have been doing in Des Moines, and your experience about multi-level collaboration in US. That would be the question. Please, Mayor County.
Well, I appreciate the question, and to let everybody know, I am so committed as our former mayor who just departed to all of our multi-level action, and knowing that cities are where events take place, whether it's heats in the surge of storms, whether it's cold or it's heat, or it's droughts, or it's forest fires, or it's a wide variety of things. It's so important that those that are leading, not only in the United States, but around the world, understand that local government is where it happens. And we're the ones that are going to implement the changes that need to take place to happen. So Des Moines, we've been very forthright in what we're doing. We have put together a plan and adapt DSM. As we look at it, we've been working now for going on 2 decades under my leadership to make Des Moines a more livable place. For instance, we are a Tree City USA, and just this year became a Tree City World. And so we are constantly trying to improve our urban forests, which hopefully will mitigate and absorb some of the CO2 emissions in the trees themselves, but also help us with the absorption of water during flood periods and heavy downpours, but also provide some of the beautification and calmness in the neighborhoods and around our cities. And we're looking in the future to planting fruit trees around our neighborhoods that people can harvest and get some apples or other sources from those and at a low cost. Because one of the things we've worked at in our city is equity. We think all of our citizens need to have protections. We even are implementing a notification system to areas of our city that are lower income that might be in need of notification during extreme weather events, heat, cold, rain, floods, tornadoes, derechos, which is a word that I learned over the last 3 or 4 years. I had never heard it before. It's an inland hurricane. Here we are, my city's in the middle of the United States, and we experienced wind speeds from 100 to 140 miles an hour, straight line coming through our city. And we're going, whoa, what's this? Well, it's a derecho. And we had never had one at least that high. We've seen tornadoes come through, but never this straight line 30, 40 mile wide storm that came through not only our city, but towards other areas in our state. And we as a city had to collaborate and work with all of our private sector partners to reinstall electricity and everything else. So we have to also look at those issues. We also, our city is committed to be 100% renewable energy on our electric grid by 2035. And I will proudly tell you all here that we are at the moment, I am told by my provider that we're at 85% as we speak. So we're very, very proud of that. But sometimes the wind doesn't blow, and an awful lot of our power is coming through wind energy and a little bit of solar, a little bit of geothermal, a little bit of hydro, but still some coal. And we need to figure out how to get rid of those coal plants, which will help take us to that 100% that we need to be. So we have a lot of plans that we are working on, and that multi-level collaboration. We are taking advantage of a lot of the options and money that has come to us from the federal government, sometimes filtered through the state government, but looking at the risks that we have and trying to mitigate, lower the risks when we do have disasters, come back more resiliently and protect all of our community, not only the businesses, but all the residents, regardless of their income, regardless of the color of their skin, their country of origin, whatever. This is about all of us working together, top to bottom, bottom to top. This is an all-in moment, and we have to realize that. And I want to congratulate those of you from Japan on all the work that you have done. And we have spent a little time discussing these issues with our sister city, Kofu, and look forward to further exchanges. And also earlier this year, and I believe about the March timeframe, we were proud to support your local government and climate initiatives. So keep it up.
Thank you very much, Mayor County. I mean, I want to ask you further questions because I think everyone's aware that you had a midterm election in US, and the results has come out with your government having newly elected in a and how do you see that affecting your government's stance on this kind of issue, as well as the collaboration with local governments? I mean, the Biden administration have issued the new legislation on, was it an anti-inflation act? Was it was it an anti-inflation act? Was it? I think the word. Yeah. And we are really actually keen to know whether if that's been having an effect on your decision as a local government, and what is your expectations for the future for this kind of activity by your government?
So that Inflation Reduction Act that came through was supported obviously by all of President Biden's and his administration's supporters. And I believe has been taken advantage of by all 50 states, although it was not fully supported by all of them early on. A lot of them looked at some of the uses of those funds as being inflationary and causing, a rise in the need for taxes and causing prices of goods to go up and everything else. This last election, I think, often in those midterm years, whoever is sitting in the administration and leading it, in this case, Joe Biden, often the midterms turn against them and they lose support from those other legislative bodies, the Senate and the House of Representatives. In this case, we're not quite sure how the House is going to come out, but we're sure that the Senate is going to continue to support. And many predicted earlier on that it was not. So we feel like we're part way to an understanding, continuing some of these bottom up, top down negotiations with our government in Washington, because we still believe that they need it. Now, in my state, for instance, we went very conservative. And some would say that we define those as red states and blue states. We're almost totally red at the moment. There's only one statewide elected official, our auditor in this state of Iowa, that is still a Democrat and part of the blue party. Everyone else, including all of our representatives in the Senate and the House of Representatives to Washington, are all Republican. So we're hopeful that they can be supportive of all the efforts that we're starting in Des Moines, and realize that the actions that we need to take to combat climate and look for a solid future for not only today, but future generations, this needs to be a collaborative effort. This is not a partisan issue. This is about all the people all the time, and what are the best outcomes for all the people, not the reds or the blues. It's all of us. And I'm hopeful that given the outcomes, which were far stronger in support of President Biden and his administration and the work that they have done than anyone would have predicted. But, it could be better, but we need to find ways to look at the future of our country, this world, and how we all work together to come with outcomes that are beneficial to all of our citizens and not look at things in a partisan way.
Thank you very much, Mayor County. I would like to turn on to Japanese local government perspective. So now we heard that three presentation from Japan, but I would like to turn to Mayor Fujimoto because Tokorozawa has been doing quite a very aggressive action on the ground implementation. But I would like to ask Mayor, because the theme of this session is about multi-level collaboration. From Mayor Fujimoto, what do you see is the necessity of multi-level collaboration happen in your context? So please.
In Japanese, okay?
Okay, I'll translate.
似ているところもあると思いますけれども、上から下までだけではなくて、内から外から、そして地方自治体の中からも外からも同じように政府の中からも外からもアプローチしてこのクライメートチェンジを、対処していかなくちゃいけないと思っています。
Actually, it's Mayor County's. Maybe the situation is similar. So what he believes is that these climate actions has to be dealt with from inside, from the outside, from top to bottom, inside the government, from the outside to the outside of the government. So this is my view of climate.
というのは、例えば所沢市としては、市民に分かってもらいたいので、まず市民自身が地球温暖化はひどい状況だから、もう行動に移さなくちゃいけないんだ。様々なことを、それを第一に考えなくちゃいけないんだっていうことを分かって行動に移していただくために、アトランダムで市民を集めてミーティングをして、そこから新しいアイデアを出そうということで、市民から行動するようにしています。
In Tokorozawa, we value the fact that our citizens are understanding the climate crisis. So what we are doing in Tokorozawa is to randomly select our citizens and then conduct a workshop and then ask them to come out with the new ideas. And then with those initiatives, we are able to come out with the new ideas and new approaches.
というのは、私たちローカルガバメントが市民に言っても、それは聞き入れてもらえない、不便になるから、リジェクトされるからです。
This is because if we as a local government tell our citizens, they won't listen to us.
内側から来るのと同時に外側から来るというのは、例えば、所沢のローカルガバメントの中でも、エンバラメンタルディパートメントは、このクライメートチェンジについて真剣に考えていますけれども、例えばエデュケーショナルディパートメントとか、あとは道路を作る土木の関係のディパートメントは、全くそんなことは関係ないで、昔の法律に従って粛々と物事を進めています。
So in terms of inside and outside, it applies also from within the Tokorozawa city. So the department in charge of environment is obviously aware of climate crisis, but for example, the department in charge of infrastructure, they have no idea about climate crisis, and this needs to be changed.
ですので、今度は、エデュケーショナルディパートメントとか、あとは物を作る土木関係のディパートメントにはもそういうふうに思ってもらって、そういう行動を本当に取ってもらうために、偉い先生、エキスパートを呼んでは話を聞いてもらっています。
So in order to change those infrastructure departments as well as the departments in charge of education to really rethink, we invite experts and professors to actually come and teach us.
同じようにちょっと想像すると、国レベルでも環境省がいくら頑張っても、国土交通省、建設省、文部科学省が全く今まで通りの法律で進もうとしている状況があるようなふうに見えます。
Same applies in the government level. So even if the Ministry of Environment is working very hard on climate crisis, if the Ministry in charge of infrastructure, if the Ministry in charge of education, if they are not working on climate crisis, then they will just go ahead with their legislation that they have as a normal business.
自分自身、それなわけで、本当のことを言いますと、所沢市のローカルガバメントの中でも、エデュケーショナルディパートメントは文部科学省の言うことしか聞きませんし、建設省は国土交通省のことしか聞かない。 環境部門のことは言うこと聞かないという現実があります。
So actually, within Tokorozawa City, the department in charge of education will only listen to the ministry in charge of education. The department under Tokorozawa in charge of infrastructure will only listen to the ministry of industry, infrastructure.
ですので、ガバメントの世界でもみんながクライメートチェンジのために何ができるかということを現実に法律に落として、そして法律を今までの時に何十年前に作った法律を変えて、新しい法律作って、そしてみんなで同じ法を目指す。同じようにそれを法律ができれば、ローカルガバメントも従うことになりますので、それによってみんな、ガバメントもローカルガバメントも市民も内からも外からも、クライメートチェンジのために頑張らないような形ができるんじゃないかというふうに思っています。まあそういう法律が変化するのがまだ遅いということです。
So actually, I think that the legislation or the law should be amended. So even for the education sector, infrastructure sector, these department officials, they will only look at their legislation and laws. And the ministries, if they are actually applying the old laws and regulation that does not reflect the climate crisis, then they will actually go with their business as usual basis. So every ministries, they have to also revisit their legislation, laws and regulations, and everyone should go and look towards the same direction. And if that happens, then there will be a collaboration from government to local government, and also from inner activity, and also from the outside, they can approach this climate crisis. And I think that's needed action for multi-level collaboration. ありがとうございます. Thank you very much. So I would like to move on to Yokohama City. So in Yokohama, you have been working, we have heard from Japanese government in the opening session that they've been working closely with the local government, but Yokohama City has been working also together with the ministry on, how do I say, putting forward in this multi-level collaboration into action. So I would like you to introduce this action briefly, please. Thank you so much.
To be brief, and thank you for your question. And we understand that collaboration between national government and local government is necessary to achieve a net carbon neutral society. To this, we understand that Yokohama City have joined the National and Regional Decarbonization Realization Committee as a member. At the same time, together with other local governments, Yokohama also launched the Committee for Carbon Neutral City. We propose necessary measures to the national government. Yokohama will continue our collaboration between various sectors, nationally and internationally, for carbon neutral society.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that very quick comment. So thank you very much for these discussions. That was very interesting. I would like to finish this session by introducing another video from our German mayor from Münster. We have been receiving a video from Mr. Mayor Leary. So please show the video.
Dear colleagues, dear ladies and gentlemen, warm greetings from Münster, the city of the Westphalian peace. I regret that my schedule did not allow me to join you in person at this important meeting at the COP27 today. However, I feel honored to be able to address you with this video message. Climate change is one of the core global challenges of our century, and cities are the forefront when it comes to coping with these challenges. Unleashing the full potential of the transformative power of cities is pivotal for developing solutions. Cities need to be at the table when discussing global developments as partners in a real multi-level governance system. One successful step forward to include cities in a meaningful way was made during this G7 presidency. As Japan takes over the G7 presidency in a few weeks, I'm delighted that JDCMA will take over the Urban 7 presidency. And as we pass the baton, I would like to outline 5 lessons learned during this year's presidency of the Association of German Cities that I believe laid the groundwork for our success. First, we brought together a group of organizations and networks with a common vision. Instead of trying to start a new network in an already crowded field, we built off of the remarkable work of many organizations. This strength became particularly evident in the drafting of our U7 Mayor Declaration. Each organization brought its own expertise and perspective to the table. This enabled us to develop a declaration that addressed our expectations for the G7. Secondly, we engaged mayors from the Global South. This discussion made by the G7 have a significant impact on cities around the world. That is why we included them in the drafting of our declaration and invited them to join our conversations, including our U7 Mayor Summit. The third element was the willingness of so many in the German federal governments to treat cities as partners. At the start, the German G7 presidency set clear expectations about the transformative power of cities and their important role in the G7 process in their program. Then the U7 received funding from the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development for our efforts. Finally, ministries were open to direct dialogue both offline and in public. At our summit, the state secretaries from the Ministries for Economic Cooperation and Development and Housing, Urban Development and Building reflected directly on mayors' interventions and on our declaration. This commitment to partnership could also be seen in many of the communiques and statements that came out of G7 ministers' meeting. By the way, only a few weeks ago, the meeting of G7 ministers, foreign ministers, took place in the city of Münster. It is important to note that the G7 presidency recognized that cities should be partners in a broad range of policy decisions, not just urban development. In this year's final communique, the G7 head of state tasked relevant ministers to develop a joint understanding of good urban development policy and to decide on joint initiatives for unlocking the full potential of cities to promote social, cultural, technological, climate neutral, economic and democratic innovation for the common good. Fourthly, we were involved from the beginning. The German Federal Ministry of Housing, Urban Development and Building did invite us to join the G7 ministerial meeting, and they included the U7 in the process of planning the meeting and drafting the communique. Finally, cities were included at eye level in the ministerial meeting. At the meeting of the ministers for housing, the Urban 7 had a seat at the table. We had the opportunity to discuss ways in which multi-level governance could unleash the potential of cities directly with the ministers. Dear colleagues, as a president of the German City Association, I now would like to pass the baton to the president of the GDCMA, Mayor Kiso Hisamoto, and to the Japanese cities. I believe that the perspective of cities in the dialogue on global developments needs to be strengthened even more in the future. And I'm convinced the momentum from the German presidency will lead to great success in Japan in 2023. I would like to offer you my support and through you the engagement of the Association of German Cities and its member in the Urban 7. I'm looking forward to continuing to work closely with you and Japanese designated cities Mayors Association. Thank you very much and best greetings.
Thank you very much. I actually have to apologize because there was one more video message from Mayor of Mannheim, Peter Kutz, and I was supposed to show that before the discussion session, but we have this video now, so I would like to show this video to deliver Mayor Kutz's message. So please show the video.
Dear friends and colleagues, greetings from Mannheim, Germany. Unfortunately, my schedule would not allow me to travel to COP27 this year, but I am delighted to be able to address you by video to tell you about the work of the Urban 7. Thank you all for your interest and support of this important process. The Urban 7, or U7, is a coalition led by the Global Parliament of Mayors and ICLEI, as well as the Association of German Cities. The national city networks of the G7 members are at the heart of the U7's work, driving our vision and priorities. We are united by a shared conviction that policies developed together by all levels of government will be better able to address global challenges. To this end, the Urban 7 is working to establish a system of true multi-level governance by engaging directly in the G7 process. I have played an active role in the Urban 7 throughout Germany's G7 presidency as both the chair of the Global Parliament of Mayors and as the U7 special envoy of the Association of German Cities. As our whirlwind year of engagement slowly comes to an end, I am happy to join you today to reflect on what we have accomplished in 2022. Together, U7 mayors drafted an ambitious declaration which outlines the priorities of cities across the G7 and also reflects input from mayors in the Global South. Our declaration calls on national governments to work with us as partners to address global challenges. We were pleased that our messages were acknowledged and addressed in the G7 Heads of State communiqué and the statements and commitments that came out of several G7 ministers' meetings. Here, it is important to note that the G7 presidency recognized that cities should be partners in a broad range of policy decisions, not just urban development. In fact, the G7 Heads of State tasked relevant ministers to develop a joint understanding of good urban development policy. This is a remarkable step forward for the U7 and cities around the world. I am also happy to report that these were not just empty statements. 2 months ago, I was invited to participate in the G7 Urban Development Ministers meeting on behalf of the U7. At the meeting, I had the opportunity to discuss at eye level with the ministers the ways in which multi-level governance can unleash the potential of cities. This unprecedented open engagement between national and local government is another leap forward for our efforts. I am certain that the momentum generated in Germany this year will lead to great success in Japan in 2023. I am looking forward to working closely with Mayor Hisamoto and the entire Mayors Association of Designated Cities as Japan takes over the G7 presidency. I am convinced that as our Urban 7 process becomes more formalized, we will be able to make remarkable progress together. I wish you all a fruitful debate today and look forward to meeting you in person soon.
Thank you very much. And finally, I would like to finish this session by introducing a video message from Kobe Mayor. He will be the chair of JDCMA, who will be leading the Urban 7 activity for next year. So please show the video.
Hello everyone. I'm Kizo Hisamoto, Mayor of Kobe and Chair of the Japan Designated Cities Mayors Association, JDCMA for short, an organization of 20 major cities in Japan. I'd like to thank the central and local government officials as well as all the other stakeholders participating today for the opportunity to speak at this splendid event. Our association has been participating in youth-7 activities since 2021. At the second Youth-7 Mayor Summit held in Germany in May of this year, I was able to deliver a message that other leaders of all municipalities and countries of major cities are committed to work proactively in cooperation with central government for the sustainable society, which includes climate change action, biodiversity conservation, and bridging the intergenerational gap. Thanks to the efforts and leadership of the German local governments involved in U7, the 2022 Urban 7 Mayor's Declaration was delivered to the German government, and the important role of cities was mentioned in the G7 leaders' communique. Furthermore, several ministerial statements also mention the importance of sustainable urbanization and multi-level corporations and emphasize the importance of the cities. I believe that the activities of U7, including our declaration, have been recognized, and that the cooperation between the central and local government is moving forward. The U7 began its activities in 2021, but in terms of local government contributions to the G7 discussion, it began in 2016 when local governments raised their voices in conjunction with the G7 Environment Ministers meeting held in Japan. Our association will take over the U7 summit from Germany as the organization representing the major cities of Japan, the host country of next year's G7 summit. And I feel that the role of the cities is more recognized domestically and internationally now compared to 7 years ago at the Toyama meeting, and that local government of all levels are now expected to be involved in policy making on an equal thing with the central governments. I strongly believe that we need to continue promoting the cooperation between central and local governments, and that G7 countries should be world leaders when it comes to the projects related to these fields. The JDCMA is currently facilitating discussions among stakeholders in Japan in order to prepare for the third U7 Mayor Summit. We recently held an internal meeting where we all agreed that in addition to myself as the chair, mayors of the participating cities should also be actively involved in U7 activities to build momentum. We also confirmed that we will form an alliance with ICLEI, which is an association of local governments from Japan and other countries that lead the efforts to achieve sustainability, and that we will continue promoting our initiatives while strengthening the cooperation with local governments in other U7 countries. Next year's summit will build upon previous initiatives while evaluating their achievements, aiming to include the unique characteristics and strength of the host country. Specifically, we would like to raise SDGs and peace as central concepts. I want to advocate for the role of local governments and their contribution to tackling common international challenges related to sustainable development, including the promotion of peace and democracy, climate change, biodiversity conservation, disaster preparedness, and resilience planning, as well as measures to combat inflation and rising energy prices. Furthermore, I also would like to mention the need and importance of establishing international networks such as intercity cooperation and multi-level cooperations. At the same time, our association cannot make this upcoming summit a success all by itself. Therefore, we shall work in close cooperation with both our national governments and also the local governments of all the other G7 countries. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite Yunus Arikan. He is the Director of Global Advocacy, ICLEI World Secretariat, give a closing remarks.
Thank you, Togo. First of all, congratulations for this really inspiring and really motivating activity and gathering all the partners from the Urban 7 network. And I think it was a nice, almost a wrap up of our yearly engagement. I also would like to congratulate this year's Urban 7 partnership, Deutsche Städtetag, ICLEI, and Global Parliament of Mayors. Of course, making this event in the event hosted or supported by Japan is for me also meaningful, because those who can remember, Wolfgang, I think you would remember, I'm not sure whether you referred in your speech, the journey of the cities in the G7 started in Japan. It was 2016, Toyama, where the first time Minister of Environment invited mayors to have a roundtable with the environment ministers. This was instrumental for our thinking of how we could make this kind of a direction as a new wave of engagement. And in fact, 2 years later in Bonn, when we had the first, one of the powerful statements, we have said that we will engage the G20, G7, Belt and Road, these non-UN processes, because these are important opportunities for us. And I'm so happy that all these years later, in the year that we are based as a World Secretariat and with the President of Germany, now we are offering a fantastic, let's say, in a golden plate, that the Urban 7, which was not even thought in 2016, now with the new upcoming or incoming Japan presidency could take a leapfrog. You all have discussed that it was a difficult year for us. The presidency program was very impressive, but we were not recognized as constituency. Now we all look forward to another leadership of Japan so that you will take it forward. So in that regard, I think really very fantastic. But of course, G7 agenda is not just only climate, but that's why it's also good to have this discussion here, because it was the climate space. We have been working with you as Japan office and all the mayors and governors in Japan with Minister of Environment once again, how to raise Japanese ambition through collaboration, which became a model across the world to the Glasgow way forward. And now here in this COP, we're talking about multi-level action delivers. We're aware the Japanese model of 100 cities and regions to be supported by the Japanese government as a model to the rest of the world is exactly what we want to bring to the table in the UNFCCC. And in that regard, once again, we are very proud and happy that Japan is the first country who has officially endorsed the initiative that is being developed with the presidency, which will be announced tomorrow, where we will welcome Vice Minister as well. So fantastic continuity, but also offering new opportunities. I look forward to personally join you in this the cycle of G7. My first visit to Tokyo reminds me all the good memories. Congratulations once again, all your mayors and officials. It's good that we are sharing the similar corridor, and it's a good solidarity. So once again, let's hope that we can report in the next COP in Dubai the outcome of your leadership, your participation. We look forward to you to be more even bold, as you have heard from Dr. Wiegel. We will be accounting, of course, we will be playing a role, but we look forward to introducing this new additional partnerships and share that the Japanese presidency also added even more ambition and concrete demonstration to this journey of cities and regions across the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Yunus. So that will be our closing remarks, and I've officially announced the closing of the session. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.